Let's start.
Okay, I'm good now.
Okay.
We're
Shall I just-
starting, yay.
Our first storyteller is Bertha Riley, and then we'll have our featured teller, Elaine Stanley.
Well, hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. And since I've been hearing a lot of talk about healing in all kinds of ways, I thought I'd share my story about personal healing. You see, December 19th, the day before my 81st birthday, I had a bad fall from my bicycle. My bicycle is my happy time. I lay there on the ground, and the first people who came by were mountain rescue people. But I was determined not to go to the emergency room, and certainly not the hospital because of COVID. Well, they were very gentle, and they stood for a while I tried to move and realized that I was in terrible pain. Eventually, they persuaded me I had to go to the hospital. So I did. I ended up in the emergency room, but luckily they have a separate emergency room for people who have COVID. So I was on the safe side. So, the doctor examined me. I was in incredible pain. They gave me pain pills. Great. They x-rayed me. And they have this incredible thing now. You don't have to move. They put this sort of blanket under you and they blow it up. And so they can slide you back and forth without any pain. Fantastic. So I had turned out, I had broken 4 bones in my pelvis. There was nothing the doctors could do. They couldn't splint me. They couldn't do anything except give me pain pills. I insisted on going home, as did my family. Nobody goes to nursing homes to die, However, they had to take me home by ambulance and put me in the bed because I couldn't move anything. Well, I guess I could move my arms, but my whole body was like split in half with acute pain. This is just, I don't want anyone to tell anyone about this. I had to wear adult diapers. Oh, okay. I did, because there was no way anyone could get me up the way I was in pain. So I lay there and succumbed to taking pain pills, strong pain pills, which I didn't like to take. But otherwise, if I moved anything, it was just so acutely pain. But the amazing thing was that my body started to heal. And after about 10 days, I found that pulling on a rope my son had fixed up at the bottom of the bed, I could actually sit up in bed. And then I discovered that I could move my legs very gently, one at a time. I still needed a little help to get out of the bed into the wheelchair. And it was Christmas, so luckily my son, who happens to be a doctor, came to visit for Christmas. And he was able to help me actually into the wheelchair. And a few days later, to just barely stand up with the walker. Anyway, the whole process got me thinking about how we heal. Like somehow there's little cells that had been dormant, hadn't had any work to do for a long time. Suddenly they got a message, must have been the pain from my bones, perked up, went to work, created this glue that glued my bones together, that started to allow me to be able to move without pain. And after about 2 weeks, maybe 3, I actually could get out of bed, sit on the side of the bed, and even stand with help. So I started to really, as I said, think about, the healing that the intelligence of healing in the universe, and there it was in my cells. And now it's almost 6 weeks later. And those little cells, they're no longer just doing glue, they're laying down actual bone. And in another couple of months, I'll be back on my bike and I'll have new, strong bone in that place. Now, if that's not a good way to start a new year with all the healing that we need in all kinds of level, well, I'm just telling you, there's an intelligence of healing right down to our basic cells. So I know we can heal whatever ails us. The end. Oh, I'll just say that I'm now walking with 2 hiking poles, not completely better, but really amazing what my body did all on its own. They don't have any pills to make new bone. And so.
Yeah, well, that's your spirit too, Bertha, your zest for life that accomplished that.
Well, I just had to share that because it's given me so many wonderful thoughts about that intelligence in the universe that heals everything.
Thank you,
You know?
Bertha. Thank you so much. What a
Yeah.
beautiful way to start our first swap of the new year with that kind of message about
Yeah, that I thought it's
very, very appropriate. Thank you. Thank you so much. And get well soon, get better.
yeah.
Better and better and better, sooner and sooner and sooner. All right.
Thanks.
Well, so now I get to introduce Elaine Stanley. And for a lot of us here, I don't really need to introduce Elaine because so many people have said to me, oh, I'm so excited Elaine is coming, because Elaine is coming to us from Santa Rosa in Sonoma County. But she used to live in Brooklyn for many, many years. And a lot of us, she was so active in so many things in the East Bay and the whole Bay Area storytelling community, and she still is. I first met Elaine through the Bay Area Storytelling Festival. I was a volunteer doing some pretty small jobs, but Elaine did, I don't know how many different jobs, including like sleeping out at the park to make sure everything was safe for the Bay Area Storytelling Festival to go on. So her dedication over decades, both to things like that, community things, and also to her own storytelling. It's been 25 years since she's been telling stories professionally, from right here all the way to Beijing, China. And I think she's missed us since she retired and moved up to Santa Rosa. And we've missed her. So Elaine, we're just so happy to have you here to tell us one of your great stories. So let's welcome Elaine.
Well, thank you. And what a nice introduction. And what a good story to follow. My goodness, a new year with new bones. Can't start a year better than that. All right. My story is, well, it speaks for itself. As a kid, I moved about every 2 years because my father was in the Air Force. I grew up an Air Force brat, and on average, I moved every 2 years for my entire growing up life. And when you move somewhere new, people say, who are you? And the next question is, where are you from? Now, do you say you are from where you just left, or do you say where you were born? Well, that was always a conundrum in my life. Every time I moved, you met new people and you had to say where you were from. If I said I was from Texas, the last place I lived, cool. If I said I was from Virginia and they asked any questions, I wouldn't have any answers because I left when I was 3 months old. But I lived around the country. I lived in England, and my last years at home with my family were the 4 years we spent in Tokyo, Japan. I graduated from my last 3 years of high school And I worked and traveled the 4th year that I was in Japan. And when we came back to the United States, they shipped several families back on a ship. So we got to come back over the ocean. And it was full of people who had been touring Japan, and I'd been there for 4 years. So it was fun to listen to their stories of their 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever time they had in Japan. We got to the United States in San Francisco, and I said to my dad, I'm not ready to go to college. I'm not ready to start a job somewhere. I want to go find myself. And he said, well, let me tell you, you're right here in front of me. I found you. I said, no. I mean, I want to know some things about myself. I haven't even been, America is strange. It's different. I've been out of the country for 4 years and all the signs are in English and I can read them, but America's different than Japan. He said, yes, it is. And I said, I want to go back to Virginia and see my birth state. I want to know where I'm from. So when people ask, where are you from? And I say, I know where I'm from, not just the name of a place. He said, well, I guess we can do this. I will give you your inheritance early. Don't expect any more from me when I retire and pass away. I said, yeah. He said, I'll give you your inheritance and you can go do whatever you want. Know that we love you and you can always call home. We love talking to you, but you don't come home and you don't ask for more money. Don't come home to live and ask for more money. I said, okay. He says, when the money runs out, time to get a job. I said, okay. So the next morning, he handed me a nice sum of money. And here I was in a strange city, in a strange country that's my own country, going, what's the cheapest way to get to Virginia from San Francisco? Well, Greyhound bus, of course. So I took a Greyhound bus. Now, I can't remember exactly how many days it took, but it felt like 10 years. I finally showed up in Virginia, and it is a beautiful state. And running down that western side of the state are the Blue Ridge Mountains. And I saw those mountains and I was young and strong and agile. And I went, gee, I could get a cabin up here in these mountains. I could live off the land, plant a garden, hunt, fish, and plant a garden. I might never have to work. I might never have to go to college or go to school. That'd be great. So I looked around, found a realtor who was willing to take this young kid, 20 years old, and take her up there in the mountains and find a cabin. Well, we looked and we looked. And guess what? We found a place. It was beautiful. Well, it was more of a shack than anything, but it had a roof that kept the rain out, and it had a beautiful stone fireplace. So I took some of my money and I went to town and bought the things I needed to make and plant a garden. And it took me a while to garden. And you know, living off the land is not easy. There's all these animals that come in and eat your crop just before it's ripe enough for you to pick. And I had to learn how to wire things, fence things, so that I could get something out of my garden for me. It took me 2 years to learn how to fish so that I knew what time of the year or what time of the day, which places to go on the river to catch fish. And it probably took me 3 years to really learn how to hunt so that when I went out, I knew I was coming back with meat for the table. And my grandpa, who had hunted in those mountains his entire life, said, you go out and hunting and you take 3 bullets and you don't come home with meat for the table, you deserve to go hungry. We used to laugh at that, but he had his point. And so I moved into my cabin. I planted and tilled my garden and fenced it and worked it and guarded it, and eventually got to eat out of it very well. And one fall morning, I woke up. It was a beautiful day. It was sunny and gorgeous and cool. It was in the fall, and the leaves were changing colors. And I went, I haven't had any meat on the table for at least 3 days. It's time to go hunting. So I grabbed that gun from over the fireplace, threw it over my shoulder, and stomped out the front door. I went just humming down the path, walking along, bouncing along. It was such a clear, gorgeous day, and the sunlight coming through those red, yellow, orange, purple leaves was, well, it was like sunlight through a cathedral stained glass window. It was wonderful. And of course, stomping and humping and hunting and humming as you walk along the path where you'll never catch anything. And about an hour down the path, I looked off to my left, and there was a pheasant. I spun around really quick. Bam! I shot. Doggone, I missed. I had all day, no problem. Threw the gun over my shoulder, but this time I stopped humming and started walking softer down the path. It just sucking in this beautiful day. It was so, the air smelled sweet. It was so beautiful. I walked about another hour, and off to my right, I saw a little rabbit. I spun around really quick. Bam, I took a shot. Doggone, I missed. And then I checked the gun. And then I realized, checked my pockets. I realized I hadn't put any ammunition in my pockets. I had one bullet left. One bullet left. I'd wasted two. Oh no. What was I going to do? Well, I stood there in the path and I started my mantra. The next thing I shoot at, I will hit. And I must have repeated that line 10 times. Each time my voice got a little softer, a little quieter, until I was silent. And then I started moving down that path, so stealth-like you could not hear a twig or leaf crack beneath my big old hunkin' hiking boots. I was like the wind. I was invisible. I was one with the woods. And as I stood there moving so slow, I looked off to my left, and there was a buck deer with a rack of antlers so big, I couldn't believe my eyes. I'd never seen a rack of antlers that big. It was amazing. I pulled my gun up, slowly took aim, and then I heard a noise off to my right. I looked off to the right, and there come a bear, a big black bear through the woods. Here come the bear and the deer, and the deer and the bear and the bear and the deer. And well, it didn't seem right to leave either one. So I reached into my knife, pulled the knife from my waist, and I threw my hunting knife at an elm tree right in front of me. I took aim at that knife blade and I shot. Bam! The bullet hit that knife blade, split right in two. One half killed the bear and the other half killed the deer. I couldn't believe my luck. And this wasn't even the best part. Why, the sheer force of that bullet hitting the knife blade knocked that knife blade out of the tree and sent it spinning up in the air like a big old helicopter blade, just as a flock of ducks was flying overhead. That knife killed, clean and dressed 7 of those ducks before falling back to earth point first, killing the rabbit. Oh, I couldn't believe my luck. I went running over to check my deer when I tripped over a turtle and fell head first into the creek. I came up sputtering and looked over, and that turtle was on his back. And a good thing too, because turtle soup in the fall is good. Well, it took me sheer 20, 25 minutes to get out of the creek because my boots were so full of trout. And then I spent the rest of the day gathering up, tying up, and dragging home my catch. But you know, it weren't a bad day's catch for only having one bullet left. Thank you.
Yay!
Oh, Elaine, what a wild ride. Ah,
Life
such a
is good.
pleasure to hear you tell that story. I said to Elaine, I've actually heard Elaine tell that story before, but a good story from a good storyteller, you just want to hear it over and over. And fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Did you want to say anything about the story?
I should say that it is a very old Ozark tall tale, dovetailed with a personal story. And I enjoy telling.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
It made me think. It was very well told, and when you got toward the end and it was clear what was going on, Bill Lepp came to mind.
Yes.
You know who Bill Lepp is?
Oh yes, he's a tall tale killer of the first order.
of tall tales, right?
He is
But
the
you
best.
did it with a perfect straight face. It was wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. If any of you don't know Bill Lepp, he's the 5-time champion of the West Virginia Liars Contest. So that puts Elaine in some very good company. If you have a chance to see Bill Lepp, Google. I just emceed a show that he was part of. We can see these people without going to West Virginia or going far. It's amazing right now. So, and we can have Elaine here with us, even though she's, it's a blessing in disguise. It's the silver lining because Elaine isn't driving at night anymore so far as to come to us, and then
Drive home.
we got to hear her. So thank you so much.
And on YouTube, you can see Bill Lepp read from the published version of The King of Little Things, and then say, well, but it was a story first, and then he tells it. Storytellers, and you can see both ways that he works with that wonderful story.
Thanks, Tom. That's really interesting. Yeah. So he's one of those people who's a storyteller and an author. Very interesting. All right. Well, we have lots more great stories in store. And our next storyteller is Cynthia Cutterback. And after Cynthia will be Andre Wilson. So please spotlight Cynthia, Marnie. And Cynthia, you should unmute yourself. And I will mute
Yeah,
mine.
she is without her picture, but there she goes.
Bartender, Red Hook, please. I know, so obvious, but my sponsors need me to stay on brand. Oh yes, you've heard of me. Yes, I'm that red. Don't ever call me little. Well, you know how my story started with that slavering big bad wolf and the serious hurt he put on my grandmother. I mean, the whole business about swallowing whole and jumping out, come on, give me a break. But I gotta tell you, something changed in me that day. That moment when we were filling that wolf's belly with stones and sinking him, I was onto something. I never delivered baked goods again. Now, you gotta remember, wolves were serious bad news in this day. They were terrorizing pigs, terrorizing people, eating crops, eating people's herd animals, and the wolf hunting business was very lucrative. And frankly, I'm one of the best. Oh yeah. I have a lot of wolf tails and hats to my name. Well, an important, it was fun. It was really fun. But eventually, I married and I had a kid of my own, and things started changing for me. I was still a great wolf hunter because you gotta think like a wolf, right? You gotta know their tricks, you gotta know their plans. And when you know something that well, you feel a connection. Well, one day I shot a wolf at quite some distance. Didn't realize until I got there that it was a nursing mother. Ooh, my own breasts hurt thinking of this poor wolf's cubs. And I went to find them because they couldn't live without their mother. It was the best I could do was offer them a gentle death. And well, one of the cubs just sort of sat there, kind of didn't know to be afraid of me. And just something bent, you know, and I took this cub home. I've actually been breeding wolves, yeah, for, I don't know, 500 years, something like that now. They do tend to run into each other. And the amazing thing happened was that this first wolf, you know, he didn't have any fear. And as this wolf had cubs and their cubs had cubs, I would always adopt those cubs that were least fearful, the ones that were most likely to want to be friendly. And the amazing thing was that after generation and generation, their ears got floppier and their noses got softer, and they just became very cuddly companions. Yes, they did. Yeah. It was fascinating what happened when you breed wolves for friendship and they get these puppy-like features. Okay. The other thing that happened, it's been a long time I've been hunting wolves. I started noticing the effect that this was having on the environment. When the wolves were gone, and I knew, yes, it did, I had a great deal to do with that, the deer started overrunning the forest and they would eat all the small shrubs. And their little pointy hooves would dig up the riverbanks. And next thing you know, we were dealing with muddier rivers and changes. And when there were no more bushes, there was no more places for the songbirds. And when the rivers got muddier, the beavers didn't want to be there anymore. Yes, I did move from the Black Forest to Montana. This was about 200 years ago. And I started realizing that maybe we weren't really on the right track with this whole wolf extermination thing. Well, I am proud to say that I was involved in bringing the wolves back to Yellowstone. There is a video on YouTube, you got to watch it. It's called Wolves Change Rivers. The wolves came back. They didn't eat all the elk, but the elk moved away from their old habitats by the rivers. The rivers started running clearer. The shrubs started growing up. The songbirds returned, and the entire ecosystem at Yellowstone has been reshaped completely. So you know what, people? We can learn from our mistakes.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. That was incredible.
Bravo.
For those of you who don't know Cynthia, you will not be surprised, however, when I tell you that she is a science educator. And what an amazing way to teach science, huh?
Thank you. That came out of a prompt in Kirk's class. He said, how could you retell an old story? And just sort of the whole thing came to me.
Well, I can see why it would. Creativity plus knowledge makes a great story. By the way, you might be interested in this. Assist, Artists Standing Strong Together, has just started a series, and I missed it yesterday, but weekly programs about climate change and other science topics and for storytellers, like how to be more effective.
Excellent. And NSN is doing a workshop on the same thing in April.
Yeah, cool. So important. So important. Thank you so much. All right. As I said, our next storyteller is Andre Wilson, and I can't wait to hear. Thanks. It's good to have you back. I'm going to mute.
Liz. Thank you. Once upon a time, there lived a monkey near the ocean. One day, when that monkey was way up in a tree, he looked down upon a lagoon and saw the most beautiful shark he ever saw. That shark was so beautiful that monkey fell in love with him and began to pick bananas and mangoes and papayas and threw them down into the water at shark. And the shark ate the fruit greedily. By and by, monkey and shark became good friends. And after some time, shark said to monkey, "Monkey, because you and I are very good friends, I would like to take you to my home and show you to my parents. They know about your visit and they have prepared a great feast to welcome you." Waka waka. Monkey said, "Ee, ee, but how do I get to your home? I can't go underwater." "Well, all you gotta do is climb on my back. You won't even touch the water." Waka waka. "Ee, ee, but you're so slippery. I'll fall off your body and drown." "No, you won't. I'll swim very slowly. You won't even fall off." And so, monkey climbed on shark's back. And shark swam very slowly out into the middle of the ocean. And when shark was way out in the middle of the ocean with monkey, shark said, "Monkey, there's something I have to tell you before we arrive home. My father is very sick right now, and the only thing that will cure him is a monkey's heart. Therefore, when we arrive, we will have to pull your heart out before we have the feast." Waka waka. A monkey thought, "Ee, ee, I'm going to be the feast." But monkey tried to hold his calm, and he thought a little bit and said, "Oh, shark, my good friend, you should have told me that your father was ill. Then I would have brought my heart with me. I think you don't know that monkeys always leave their hearts at home. I'll forgive you now for your indiscretion, but never disappoint me again when there is a feast involved." "What? You mean you don't have your heart with you right now?" "Ee, no! I don't have my heart with me right now. See, my chest is empty. We'll have to head back home to pick up the heart." And so, shark said, "Okay, I will turn around then and head back to your home and pick up your heart. Waka waka." So the shark swam back slowly with monkey. And when shark arrived at the lagoon and they got very close to the shore, monkey leapt up from shark's back and up into a tree, pulled out a branch and threw it down at shark. "There you are. There's your monkey's heart from home." And that branch, boom, hit shark up the side of the head. And shark said, "Waka, waka," and swam away, sad, lonely, and hungry. The end.
Bravo, bravo.
Bravo.
Thank you. That story is from the Kamba people of Kenya.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Andre.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I've heard versions of that story from other places, but thank you for introducing us to one from Kenya and Waka Waka.
Waka waka. That means do it in Cameroonian.
Ah,
Means do it. Thank you.
storytelling is so educational, isn't it? And fun, at least storytellers like Andre and all the rest of who we have with us. Thank you so much. Our next storyteller is, I'm sorry I didn't but our next storyteller is Colleen Foley. And then after Colleen, we'll take a little break and then come back with Matt Go. Okay, so is that all right, Colleen? Are you ready?
Oh,
for
yes,
this?
that's true. And it's giving me a message. I'm trying to read it. The host is spotlighted. Would you like microphone to speak? Unmute myself. Okay, I got it.
You're
I didn't
good.
understand what it meant at first. So hi, I'm Colleen, and I'm telling a story from Grimm. But as everyone was telling their stories, I wanted to tell you a little bit why I've picked Grimm storytelling. I'm not from the Bay Area. In fact, I'm from the middle of the country, and I have sort of a different heritage than everyone here. So I decided, and I was really homesick when I first moved here. So my mother was legally a member of the Lakota Sioux tribe. So I went to the powwows because I felt more at home there. And this lady, this older Native American woman, I think she was Cheyenne, told me that you have to honor all your ancestors. Well, my mother's father is Scotch Irish and Welsh and English. And my mother's mother was French Canadian and Lakota. My dad is German, mostly German, and English on his side. But his mother's great grandfather was named Samuel South. So whoever knows what that means. We haven't figured it out yet. So I'm going to say a story from Grimm, which is German, which honors my dad's family. But then I could do all those other countries later on. And I want to tell Elaine, because I won't get to talk to her, that my dad worked for a State Department. We also came over on a ship. He was in the Philippines and in Tokyo when I was a little girl in the 50s. So we'll have to get together. Maybe we knew each other then. I don't know, on the ship. So here goes. This is the Frog Prince. And as Grimm goes, once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a king who ruled the kingdom, and he was known for his justice and his kindness and his empathy towards his subjects. Well, he had 3 daughters. The oldest 2 had moved on with their life and they weren't living at home. So the only one living at home was the youngest daughter. And she was very, very beautiful. Her reputation was being very beautiful. And so they lived in a castle, and next to the castle was a forest, and it was a crowded forest, but it had good shadows and trees. So in the summertime, when she was playing, she liked to go into the forest to cool off and didn't like to sit in the sun. So she went in the forest one day and she was playing with her golden ball. So she carried the golden ball into the forest, and she sat under a tree by a brook that was pretty deep and wide. And she was throwing the ball up in the air and catching it, and throwing it up in the air and catching it. And one time she was daydreaming, and instead of catching it, it fell in the brook. And she couldn't get it because she couldn't reach that far, and she didn't want to get her dress wet. So she started to cry, and she cried. And then she heard a voice, and it says, "Princess, why are you crying? Can I be of assistance to you?" She looked around and she didn't see any people. And she said, and then it said, "Over here." And it was the ugliest frog she'd ever seen in her life. And she went, "Ooh, what an ugly frog." But she didn't say that out loud. And she says, "Yes, I lost my ball in the creek and I need it back." And he says, "I'll get it for you, but I'm going to charge a fee." And she says, "Well, here, you can have," she was very spoiled. So she had lots of clothes and jewels. "Here, have my silk scarf, have one of my earrings." And he says, "Oh no, I don't need those things. I want to be your companion. I want to go places with you. I want to eat with you. I want to sleep with you. I want to be your companion." And she said, "Oh, okay," thinking that he was a frog and he had to stay in the creek. So he gave her ball, and the frog thought she was going to carry him into the palace with her, but she didn't. She carried the ball in and slammed the palace door and forgot all about the frog. Well, later that afternoon, it started raining, and it rained a lot, and her father were eating their dinner. And all of a sudden, on the palace steps, they heard this. And then it got up to the door and knocked on the door of the dining room, and the princess went to the door and opened it, and she slammed it because all it was there was the ugly frog. And she thought, well, I'm a princess, he's a frog, I don't need to do anything. But her father said, "Who was there at the door?" She looked irritated when she came and sat back down. That's why he was asking her questions. She says, "Who was at the door?" And she said, "Oh, it's this ugly old frog that gave me brought my ball back for me." And her father said, "Well, what did you promise him?" And she says, "Well, I promised him that he could be my companion, but he was just a frog and has to stay in the water, so I'm sure he doesn't want to do that." And her father said, "You promised him, and he did what his part of the bargain. You have to do yours." And so she went back to the door, let the frog in, and then he hopped up and sat next to her, and he ate part of her dinner, and she lost her appetite and just said, "Oh, what that ugly old thing." And then they had, their after dinner entertainment, as royal people do. And then it was time to go to bed, so she left the frog in the thing, and the frog says, "No, you can't go. You promised that we would be companions. I have to go with you, and you have to carry me up the stairs. I can't, it's too dry." And she says, "No, I don't want to." And her father says, "What did you promise the frog?" And she says, "Oh, all right." So she picked him up, and she didn't want to hold him because he was sort of slimy. So she picked him up and carried him up the stairs and put him in the corner of the bedroom. And then she went to bed. And in the middle of the night, there was the frog in her bed. And she got so angry, she put him and threw him against the wall. But as he hit the wall, he turned into a handsome prince with beautiful, beautiful eyes that were very kind. And they talked all night long. And they had a wonderful time. And the next day, they approached her father, and they were married that very day. And a carriage came, and she went, and she'd fallen totally in love. And she went to and they found out that the evil witch had turned this young prince into a frog, and that only a beautiful princess could have saved him. So that's what happened. And they went off in the carriage to his kingdom and lived happily ever after.
Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you.
I just felt like a kid in all the best ways sitting there listening to you tell that story.
And it's a very popular
The frog.
It's a very popular one. I mean, it's a very common one. So I'm going to go through Grimm, and I may do some from French tales and some Native American tales, and we'll see. I have to honor all my ancestors.
Well, you really honored your fathers, and
Oh, okay, father's side.
benefited
Father,
from that today. Thank you so
yes,
much.
thank you.
And come back and tell us all the others.
Okay.
We'll be looking forward to it, truly. All right, so let's take Sally, what should we say? Just like a 3-minute, literally bio break. Okay, so I have that it's 7:47 now. So at 7:50, we'll start again with Matt Go and then Bobby Kincaid. will be after Matt. But, you know, stand up, move around. If you need to go get some water, need to go use the restroom, whatever, and come on back. And meanwhile, if you don't want to, just chat with your friends. You can unmute yourself now.
So Elaine,
Yes,
can I chat with you?
Yes.
Everyone else will hear. So what year did you go on the ship back to the US from Japan?
it was 1965. We were in Japan
Oh.
from 61 to 65.
Okay, I was there in 1957.
I graduated from high school in 64,
Uh-huh.
and the Olympics was happening in Tokyo in 1964.
Oh,
So
okay.
my girlfriend and I decided we were going to be tourists from America
Ah,
over there for the Olympics, even though we'd already lived there about 2 and 3 years. So we ran around. I've got stories to tell about our running around Tokyo being tourists.
oh no, I have to tell you what well, that's a good story. I could make up, actually make up what me and my mother did in Tokyo, but I was about 10 years before you. It was just as the occupation was ending, we were there. So
Yeah, that's amazing.
okay, but we did ride on the present lines back.
Yeah, we rode back on the Roosevelt.
I think I was the Hoover.
Ah.
Okay, so it's nice. It's nice to.
Those years later, I became a docent on the USS Potomac out of Jack London Square.
Oh.
And that was FDR's presidential yacht.
Oh yeah, I've toured that. So I toured that. So maybe I met you there once. So.
No, I think we met storytelling.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I went on a couple tours of that. It's
still there. It's still open for touring.
Yeah, one of my friends got married and said their second marriage, and they had their reception on the Potomac.
How nice! Yeah, they do wonderful things like that for special parties if people want to rent the ship.
Oh, okay, yeah, I remember when you lived in Berkeley and we're at what that mixed bag.
Oh yeah, I lived in Oakland, but I used to go to the Contra Costa tail spinners swap. I used to go to Mixed Bag, and occasionally once or twice I went to the Alameda swap they had, and one
Right.
time I went out to Hayward.
Kathy used to do that one. Kathy, I'm forgetting her last name, but Mixed Bag is on Zoom now on a Monday,
I
right?
heard that. Yeah.
I don't know who's going to that. Maybe if anybody wants to talk about that.
I think we're getting quite a few.
Sarah
people.
Armstrong is here. She knows, she's the board chair for Storytelling Association of California, and she knows about all the swaps. And oh, that reminds me. Okay, so when we come back, Sally, we need to make the announcement about the swap genre, the sack swap genre. Maybe Sarah, you can talk for a minute about it, and that we're looking, you know, if you would you be willing to, and then okay.
Sure, and I'd like to tell about Stories in Living Color too.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so it's 7:51. So Sarah, so glad to have you with us, and please tell us some of the great SAC events that are going on.
Great, thanks. Well, the genre storytelling that Liz mentioned is pretty cool. It's been going on for several months now. And SAC members in swap groups are eligible. And so contact your swap leaders, who would be Sally and Liz, if you're interested in telling. The next set is on February 17th, I believe. And you need to let Ed Lewis know by February 7th who your representative will be from this swap. And the genre is love, romance stories for February, of course. And the other thing I wanted you to know for sure is the Stories in Living Color project, which I think is really cool, is having its 5th session tomorrow night, 5th session. And this is where pairs of storytellers, one Black and one white, continuing that process in this group. Next month is Asians. There's an Asian pair and so on, so different things. But the idea of pairs of people who probably didn't know each other, getting to know each other, talking together, developing stories, and it's all about helping us all look at our own racism and trying to find ways to overcome it, perhaps one story at a time. So check out the website. Both of those are free, and we'd love to have you see you on the Zoom call tomorrow and in February. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So yeah, please, if you would like to represent our swap at the February SAC genre stories event, get in touch with Sally or me. Okay. So I'm thrilled to have to introduce to you Matt Go, who I think, if I am right, this is his first time telling at our swap. It's always so wonderful to have new voices. And if I'm right, Matt, you are involved in Toastmasters?
I
Did
am.
remember right?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. Which
I
is
invite everybody here to our Toastmasters Club in Danville, California.
all right. Please tell us a story, Matt.
Well, good evening, tail spinners. The year was 2000. Doris and I were married for 15 years. Our son, Aaron, was 10 years old. I was working for a multinational corporation at the time. And on this particular day, I happened to be in Munich, Germany. I was in meetings. Suddenly, my cell phone rang. Cell phone technology was still pretty expensive at that time. And I looked down at the display. I looked at the number, the incoming number. It was the home number. And I remember saying to myself, it must be Doris. It must be important. I answered the phone. And you can imagine my alarm because it wasn't Doris's voice. Instead, it was the voice of a young child. Daddy, Daddy, Mommy's mad at me. Hold that thought. Before I finish this story, I have to take you back 20 years before. 20 years before was 1980. I was 27. I wasn't in Munich, Germany. Instead, I was in Hong Kong. For my company, I'd just taken a 3-year foreign assignment to roll out a new product. Doris and I were work colleagues. She was 21. She came from a humble family background. She was the youngest of 4 brothers and sisters. Doris was one of the most unassuming persons I'd ever met. I remember the first time I asked her out. It was after work. I asked her to join me for a drink and that we would have to take a ride in my car to get to the place we wanted to go. I remember the car. It was a Mazda 326 station wagon stick shift. It wasn't the shiniest car. It wasn't the brightest car, but in 1980 in Hong Kong, any car, new or used, was quite the luxury item. Doris was one of the most unassuming persons I'd ever met. She had a ready laugh, a ready smile. She was uncomplicated. She was uncalculating. And it's true what people say, opposites attract. And so in 1985, we married. In 1987, we moved to California. And in 1990, our son Aaron was born. Before Aaron was born, Doris and I had a conversation on where our children should sleep. I said to her, honey, experts say that parents should not allow their children to sleep in their bed. Why? Because once they do, they'll never go back to their own bed. What do you think about that, hon? And she said, absolutely. Our children, they're not going to sleep in our bed. Absolutely. And I said to myself, I remember the time, wow, I was proud of myself, the fact that I was able to convince my wife of such logic so easily, so expertly. Sure enough, one day, early in the morning, in our bedroom, over towards the door, was a small, dark, shadowy figure inching towards our bed. Not only did he inch towards our bed, that same small, dark, shadowy figure climbed into the bed. Mommy's side, of course. I looked at them. I sat up. I looked at the two of them, first at Aaron and then at Doris. Neither of them dared to look back. I knew at that time I had lost because Doris was the person she was. She could only be a good cop. And by de facto, I, Daddy, was the bad cop. In 2000, Doris fulfilled a lifelong dream. She obtained her college degree. I was traveling a lot at the time, and not only did she obtain her degree, she did so while caring for our young son. To mark her achievement, we decided to buy a car, not just any car, but a brand new car to mark her great milestone. It seems we visited almost every dealer here in the Bay Area. And in the end, we ended up with a 6-cylinder, pretty fast, very quick Honda Accord. On one hand, it was just a Honda, understated, just like Doris. On the other hand, it was fast. It was jet black. We tinted the windows. We put on chrome rims on the wheels. It had fashion sense, just like Doris. Back to Munich, back to my cell phone, back to the voice on the other end of the line. Daddy, Daddy, Mommy's mad at me. What happened, son? I asked. Aaron replied, I scratched Mommy's car. I opened the door too hard, and now the door is scratched. I asked Aaron, is everyone okay? Aaron couldn't answer. All he could do was to sob and sob some more. Let me talk to Mommy. Doris, what happened? I can't believe it. He scratched my brand new car. Honey, calm down. Doris was over the top furious. I'd never seen her this way. This was not the Doris I knew. Worse, this was not the Doris that Aaron knew. We continued talking. Slowly but surely, Doris started to calm down. Everyone learned a lesson that day. Aaron was a winner and a loser. He was a loser because he was the object of his mom's wrath. But he was a winner too, because on that day, he realized he had two parents, one to turn to in the event that the other was upset at him. As for Doris, Doris was a winner and a loser. She was a loser. She lost her temper, not with just anyone, but with her firstborn child. Doris was a winner. She learned that she could lose her temper, and in so became more self-aware. As for me, that day, I was only a winner. For on that day, on that occasion, for once, I, Daddy, was the good cop. Thank you, Tail
Bravo!
Spinners.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matt. That was a great story
Yay.
and so good to have you join us, and please join us and tell us more stories. Keep coming back. Yeah. Good cop, bad cop. When you told me the name of your story was Good Cop, I had a whole different story in mind, but you took us there. You really took us through that history. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you for letting us in your family in such a good way, insightful way. Okay. From the personal story that Matt just told, Bobby Kincaid is going to tell us a very traditional story, but as Bobby always does in her very unique way. Welcome, Bobby.
Yeah, it's a Norwegian story. It's from the Nordic people, and it's, I think, came from the Valkyries, who used to let the men, the warriors who died in the wars, walk up the bridge to heaven. And they became trolls. First, they were women of the night, and then they were trolls, men who would charge outrageous fees to go across bridges in Europe. I don't know if somehow it changed from male to female. But I have, in my way, enticed the story. And because when I had a preschool, we would play the game because my, trip, who's coming across my bridge, because we had a bridge and somebody could be the troll and somebody could be at the top and butt the troll and push him off the bridge. Well, I found it was always the three men Billies, but there's the nanny girl who always wanted to win too. So I've changed it around and put some feminine voices in it and kind of enlarged it because it's usually just, it's so simple. It's for preschool kids. So anyway, once upon a time, a long time ago, times were lean and thin and the grass was dry and dark. The Gruff family was having a hard time and they were starving. Little Sally Gruff, middle Billy Gruff, and big Nanny Gruff would look out with their mother and father and just sigh for the valley across the ravine. They lived on the steep cliff across the ravine and this beautiful valley on the other side. Every afternoon, the three kids would go over there, and little Sally, she said, "Oh, if I could just have some of those flowers." And middle Billy said, "Yes, I'd love to eat some of those spicy herbs." And big sister Nanny said, "Oh, I'd like to eat some of those grasses." Well, big Nanny, a couple of times, had jumped into the river to find out how far she would go down, but she always was pushed up on the bank, of course, on the side with the cliffs. And when she came home, she'd have to pass other trolls like the one that lived under their cliffs and paid them work. She had to work for them to pass over their particular part of the land. Well, she got home and she'd tell her family about it, but all they could do is just lust after that valley. Well, underneath, as in all good stories, lived the trolls. And of course, they become very ugly with the big nose and the ears. But I kind of like trolls because they're Nordic legends. So anyway, the trolls lived under there. It was Papa Troll and Mama Troll, and they had 14 kids. Of course, they have big families, and they were also hungry. And old Father Troll, he would watch the Gruffs up there wishing to go to the other side of the bridge with this raging water, but he would always think about how delicious they would taste. He wasn't interested in the herbs. He wanted real stuff. So he jumped into the raging river a couple of times, but he floated up to the edge. And so once he made a little raft with wood because he was a woodcutter and he also was an angler. He could fish. So he got on his wharf and he went far down and he stopped at this village of course, trolls, and they had a bridge across the river. It was quieter, but there was a bridge. So he went back up the other side and he got clear up to where he lived and he looked across and he said, "Oh, that isn't so wide across there. We can make a bridge." So he went back and he came up. He had to do the same thing that the goat had to pay trolls to go past other trolls' property, tolls. And he came up and he whispered to his children he's going to do something. He needed their help and he took two of them with him. They went back down and around on the other side, and the others were busily weaving ropes while he was gone. They were picking every single piece of dried grass on the cliffs, and the goats were just looking at them. They couldn't believe what was happening, and they were just weaving these ropes. So they got a real long rope, and by that time, Mr. Troll was up there, and he said, "Okay." So they tossed those ropes and they tossed those ropes, and finally they caught one, and he tied it around a big tree. He made one of the smaller trolls to climb up to the top and he tied it around that tree. And then he said, okay, heave. And they heaved and he sawed the tree at the bottom and the tree fell across the big ravine. Well, they did this 3 times. And then the smaller trolls had some string that they had been weaving the whole time. And they went across and they tied those 3 logs together. And by this time, the father was back up there and he looked at it. He says, not quite right. So they took all the branches off of the trees that were fallen, stripped them of their branches and laid them across the bridge. And it was a very nice path. Well, the billy goats were watching this and they were hungry, but they knew that he had some devious little plan. And they waited and they waited and nothing seemed to happen. The bridge was just there, the path across to the other beautiful side. And pretty soon hunger got to them. So the 3 young ones had a discussion. They decided that little Sally, she would go first. And she says, but he's going to eat me. Look at, he's sitting under that bridge. Look at all those children watching. They were just waiting for me. She says, well, just tell him that you're too little and that you're going to grow up as soon as you eat some of that nice grass on the other side. And she said, what if he comes after me? And the middle-sized brother says, I'll help you. If you fall in I'll go and I'll swim and I'll save you. So she went trip, trap, trip, trap, trip, trap across, and the troll was waiting. Oh, he was so excited. He said, who traps across my bridge? And she says, oh, it's only I, little Sally. He says, oh, I'm going to boil you in my wife's pot. And she says, please don't boil me. My brother's coming over and he's fatter and bigger. And the troll thought, yeah, I can wait for her. So he let her go across. So pretty soon here came Brother Billy, and he goes, trip, trap, trip, trap, trip, trap. And the old troll, of course, yells, who's crossing across my bridge? And he said, it's me, middle-sized Brother Billy. I'm going to cross the bridge to fatten myself. And he says, troll said, you're fat enough. And he said, no, my sister, she's big. You know her, she's big. She would work really fine for your pot. And the troll said, yeah, he's right. I'll eat him later. So pretty soon, big sister Nanny comes across, trip, trap, trip, trap, trip, trap, trip, trap. And with that, troll yells out, who's trapping over my bridge? And she said, you know who's trapping over my bridge. I've come to knock you in the water and gouge out your eyes and tramp on you. And he said, oh, no, you're not. And she said, yes, I am. And she got him, and he was hanged on her horns, and he was dangling in his water, and he was shouting and screaming. And by this time, his wife came out, and she said, what is this? She said, I thought you made that bridge for us to cross. And he said, it's not safe. Believe me, it's not safe. And she said, what are you trying to do? And Billy Goat came over and he said, he wants to boil us in your pot. And she looked at him. She says, I don't want any skinny, bony goats. She said, you fix up the bridge and they can cross and we'll charge them a toll. Well, everybody liked that. So Nanny Billy Goat pulls him up out of the water and shakes himself off, and he walks husky across the bridge. But from then on, the bridge was fixed, it was secure, and when the goats went across, they'd bring back seeds and flowers and herbs for the mother troll. She planted them along the edges, and the other trolls, her family, figured out a way to irrigate them so they grew. And in the meantime, other goats heard about what's going on, so the Ruff family sold their property so that other goats could live there. And so everybody prospered. The trolls prospered and the goats prosper. And if you look very carefully, you can see them all over the world doing the same things. Thank you.
Bravo.
Bravo. That's what we need more of. Win-win solutions.
Yes, that's.
Yeah. Thank you. Very creative, Bobby.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Our next storyteller is Tyler Norton Phelps.
Yeah, that was great,
Okay.
Bobby. That was like a goat troll socialist utopia kind of thing. Right on, right on. Shift those fairy tales. All right. Well, once there was a man named Jasper, and Jasper was quite convinced that he was the unluckiest man in the world. I mean, nothing good ever happened to him. He could not seem to find success in any area of life. He didn't have any abundance. He was always scraping and scrabbling for money. He didn't have any good relationships and no place to live. It was a very hard life. And he was convinced it was because he was unlucky. And he got to the point where he decided he simply wouldn't stand for it anymore. He was going to go and find God and ask God, why on earth am I so unlucky? And so he set out to do this. And he just began walking because he was convinced at some point he would encounter God. And so he started walking, and he walked for quite a long time. And eventually he came to a mountain, and as he was moving up the rocky slopes of this mountain, he saw a tiger. Now, this was not just an ordinary looking tiger. This was a scrawny, skinny, malnourished looking, very pitiful tiger. And the tiger said to him rather weakly, "Where are you going?" And Jasper said, "Oh, well, I'm going to find God and ask him why I'm so unlucky." "Oh," oh, said the tiger. "Well, that's a good idea. Do you think if you happen to encounter God, you might ask him also about me? Why am I so skinny and malnourished and hungry? Could you do that, please?" You know, she seemed just so miserable that Jasper took pity, and he said, "Fine, fine. I will ask if I make it to God, I will ask him your question as well." Thank you, said the tiger. So Jasper walked on, and he came down from the slopes of the mountain, and he came to a forest. And it was a beautiful forest with a little path running through the middle of it. And he walked for quite some time along this path, and then he felt like sitting down to rest. And where he stopped, there was a little tree. And it really was a little tree, a very kind of scrawny, twisted, again, sort of malnourished looking tree, very stunted compared to the others. And Jasper sat there to rest for a moment. And as he did so, the tree spoke to him and said, "Hello, where are you going?" "Oh, well," said Jasper, "I'm going to find God, and I'm going to ask him why I'm so unlucky. And the tiger also wants to know why she's so malnourished and hungry all the time." Oh, well, that's a very good idea," said the tree. Uh, you don't suppose if you are talking to God that you could ask him about me? I seem to be so stunted and small and twisted when all my brothers and sisters around me are so tall and straight. And I just wonder if God might understand what's the problem, why that is. "Oh, yes, certainly, said Jasper. "I'm happy to ask him if I find him." Thank you very much," said the tree. And when Jasper had finished resting, he stood up and stretched and went on his way. And the path led through the forest for a long time further, but eventually came out of the forest. And then he was in a beautiful meadow. And as he crossed this meadow, he came to a beautiful little glade with trees all around, a little brook running through it, flowers. It was one of the most beautiful spots he'd ever seen. And there in that glade was a cottage, a lovely little cottage with a huge garden surrounding it. And sitting in front of the cottage was a woman on a chair, just enjoying the sunset, just looking very contented and peaceful. And as she saw Jasper coming up, she jumped up and she said, "Oh, hello. We don't usually get visitors here. Welcome. Come on in. Perhaps I can provide you with some hospitality." Jasper thought that was very nice, so he came in, chatted with the woman for a little bit, and then she said, "It's getting late in the day. Maybe you should stay for dinner. I'd be happy to make you dinner." And Jasper thought that was a nice idea. So he sat down to a delicious dinner that this woman had prepared. And she asked him where he was going. And he said, "Well, you see, I'm going to ask God why I'm so unlucky. And also the tiger wants to know why she's so hungry and malnourished. And the tree wants to know why she's so stunted and malformed." Oh, said the woman, that's wonderful. And she ate a few more bites, and then she said, would you mind, if you do encounter God, asking about me? Because I live here in this beautiful place, and I seem to have everything I could ever want, but sometimes I'm just so sad, and I don't really understand it, and I wonder if you could ask God why that is. Oh, certainly, that would be fine, said Jasper. I'd be happy to do that. And then it really was nightfall. There was no point in Jasper going any further. So the woman offered to make him up a bed in the guest room, and he gratefully accepted. And she did this, and he slept very soundly and very well that night. Woke up with the sun shining through the windows and the birds singing and the flowers. It was really beautiful again, and ate a delicious breakfast that the woman had made, and went on his way and waved goodbye and thanked her. So he continued to walk for some time through the beautiful soft grass of this meadow. And eventually he came to a cliff, and he realized this was the cliff at the end of the world. He had finally reached his destination. God had to be around here somewhere. And so he walked along parallel to the edge of the cliff for quite some time. And there he saw, floating on a cloud in the middle of space, the Almighty. It wasn't really clear exactly, was it a man, was it a woman? It was just sort of this ever-shifting entity of energy and power, but clearly it was God. And so he went up to this, as close as he could get at the edge of the cliff, and said, good morning, Your Holiness. He wasn't really sure what the correct form of address was, but you had to say something. And God said, good morning, my son. How may I help you? Oh, well, thank you. Yes, I have come to seek you because, you see, I just feel like I am the unluckiest man in the world, and I don't understand it. How can I be so unlucky? What should I do? And God said, oh, well, you simply need to carry on your path, and you will find your luck. Oh, said Jasper. Well, that's that's all right. I mean, I guess that could be good. Okay, thank you. Well, by the way, I met some friends along the way, and they had a few questions. So he asked the questions, for the tiger and the tree and the woman, and God gave him answers for each one. And Jasper thought very carefully to make sure he would remember the answers. And he said, thank you so much. And he thanked God again many times. And he turned and went on his way. And he walked back through the beautiful meadow and the soft grass. And after a time, as the sun was fading in the sky again, he came to the beautiful cottage, and the brook running past it, and the flowers and the trees. And there was the woman, and she jumped up and ran and said, oh, how good to see you again. How are you? Please come in. It's getting late in the day. Can't I fix you some dinner? And she did, and he sat down. And she asked him all about it. How was your trip? Did you meet God? What happened? And he told her that he had found God, and God told him to carry on, and he would find his luck. And after a while, she said, so did you ask God about me? Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did, said Jasper. And he said that you need company. Oh, the woman thought about this for a moment. And then it was time for bed, and she made up a bed for him in the guest room as before, and he had a long, beautiful sleep that night and felt wonderfully refreshed in the morning. And while they were having the delicious breakfast that she had made for him, she said, Jasper, I've been thinking about what you said, that God said that I needed company. And I realized that really is true. Because you see, I have everything I could ever need here. This place is so beautiful, so abundant, but I have no one to share it with. I have no one to really have companionship with. And so I was thinking, you and I seem to get along so wonderfully, and we have great talks, and we just connect. So, well, would you consider staying here with me? And we would have everything we need from the garden and the surrounding land, and we would have each other's company to enjoy. What do you think about that? Oh, that sounds delightful, said Jasper. But no, I'm sorry, I can't, because you see, God said that I would encounter my luck. I would find my luck if I carried on. So I really can't. I'm terribly sorry. But thank you. And he said goodbye to her at the garden gate as she sadly waved, and off he went. So Jasper walked on a little while and eventually came to the forest. And in the forest, he managed to find the same path again, which isn't always easy in a forest. But he walked along that same path for several hours until he came in the middle of the forest to the little tree. And the poor little tree was looking even scrawnier and shrimpier and more twisted than it had before. And Jasper sat down next to the tree, and the tree said, "Well, hello. I'm glad you're back. Did you have a nice trip?" "Oh, yes, yes, it was very nice." "And did you meet God?" "Yes, yes." And eventually the tree got around to saying, "Well, did you ask God my question?" "Yes, yes, I did," said Jasper. "And he said that you can't grow tall and straight because your roots can't go down into the ground. And that the reason for that is that there is a large iron chest underneath your roots and you can't get past it." "Oh," said the tree. "Well, that might be true because I feel something kind of hard down there. And I wonder, would you mind just maybe digging underneath my roots a little bit to see if there is something in the way?" Oh, certainly. I'd be happy to do that," said Jasper. And he happened to find a spade lying there in the leaves. Isn't that convenient? And, he dug and he dug for quite a while and dug a large hole underneath the roots and found indeed there was a large iron chest. And after some wiggling and wrangling, he managed to pull the chest out from underneath the little scrawny roots of the tree. And the tree immediately said, "Oh, that feels so much better. Thank you. Oh, but you should open the chest. See what's in it." And so Jasper did. He opened the chest, and it was filled with treasure. Unbelievable riches, gold bars and silver coins, gems and jewels of every kind, pearls, crowns, just more than you could imagine, enough to make anyone as rich as a king for their entire life. And the tree said, "Well, that's just wonderful that you found that, because, of course, I have no use for that sort of thing, so you should take it." "Oh, well, thank you very much," said Jasper, "but no, I don't need to do that, because, you see, God told me to carry on and I would find my luck. So I don't need to do that, and the treasure would just get in my way. But thank you." And he left the treasure lying there in the path and walked on. And he walked until he came to the edge of the forest. He came out of the forest and began to approach the mountain. And when he had come to the rocky foothills of the mountain, there again in the same spot was the tiger. And she was looking very skinny and very hungry. And she came over to Jasper and she said, "Well, did you have a good trip?" "Oh, yes, it was very good." "And did you talk to God?" "Yes, yes." Did you ask about me?" "Yes, I did," said Jasper. "I asked God about you, and he said that you should eat the first fool who comes along." And that is what the tiger did. Don't ask me where I got that. I don't know, but I'm glad you like it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. A cautionary tale.
Yeah, indeed.
Sally, let's see. Sally, can you unmute? I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. And I realized I think there are some people here who are joining us for the first time. And I know if we were in person, Sally would be greeting everybody, and me too, but with her wonderful Southern hospitality. And so I neglected to do that. But if you're here for the first time, and we'd love to hear like where you're from in the chat. And if anybody wants to stay after the end, but we're going to close now, and let Sally have the last word, but we'd love to know how you found us and stuff. So what a wonderful evening. Thank you, everybody. But I'm turning it over to Sally.
I'm so glad there are no fools here. So we can all go home. Well, wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for your support for Tale Spinners. I look so forward to seeing all of you and hearing your stories, and it just warms my heart to have such a lovely group together and such wonderful stories for the evening, just little gems. So thank you very much. Go out, do your best, and we will see you next month.
So Marnie, could you stop